Welcome to the Anunnaki model of war, kingship, violence, and power. Part 2, The Rebel King. This chapter begins with Alalu, the rebel king. Lahma has fallen, Nibiru still loses air, and the struggle for the throne turns toward Earth. Alalu killed Lahma, then bargained with Anu, Lahma's legal heir. He gave his daughter Damkina to Enki and placed Marduk in the succession line. Anu remained cupbearer, close enough for Alalu to watch and control. Alalu acted where Lahma hesitated. He ordered rockets to fire nuclear missiles into Nibiru's volcanoes, hoping renewed eruptions would raise enough ash to hold the atmosphere. The volcanoes answered, but not enough. The breach continued to grow. Alalu then turned toward gold. Nibiru's elite already used powdered monoatomic gold and other minerals to reduce radiation damage and extend life. He asked whether a golden dust in the ionosphere could protect the whole planet. Alalu knew from older war records that Earth and its asteroids held great quantities of gold. If gold could stabilize Nibiru's sky, the answer might not lie on Nibiru. It might wait in the inner solar system. Alalu sent a rocket toward the inner solar system. The mission ended in catastrophe when the craft smashed into an asteroid. Every crew member died. The disaster warned him of the danger, but Nibiru's crisis still demanded a solution. 9 SARs passed, 32,400 Earth years. Alalu still had not stopped Nibiru's air loss. Anu seethed, invoked the succession law Alalu had broken, proclaimed his own right to rule, and challenged him before the royals. Anu defeated Alalu, and the royals hailed Anu as king. They escorted Anu to the palace, but Alalu did not follow. Fear moved him faster than pride. He slipped from the crowd and ran for the celestial chariots. Alalu reached the rocket field, climbed into a missile-throwing chariot armed with 9 nukes, closed the hatch, entered the 4-part chamber, and took the commander's seat. He did not flee empty-handed. Alalu aimed the stolen celestial boat toward Earth. He carried weapons, royal knowledge, and a demand that would soon reach Nibiru. His exile had already begun to turn into strategy. Around 460,500 BCE, Alalu piloted the nuke-armed craft toward Earth. The asteroid belt threatened him as it had destroyed the earlier mission. Alalu fired missiles through the debris and forced his way toward the Persian Gulf marshes. Alalu landed on marshy ground near Basara on the Persian Gulf and waded ashore. Much of that world now lies under the sea. He arrived alone, armed, and unsure whether this planet would sustain him. The rivers Alalu found formed an ancient system later remembered in Sumerian and biblical traditions. The Tigris and Euphrates joined the Gihon or Karun, and farther south the Pishon completed the 4-river pattern. Alalu first wore his eagle helmet and protective suit. He returned to the rocket, extended the tester, and let the instrument breathe Earth's air. The reading showed compatibility. The planet did not reject him. Alalu left the oxygen mask and suit in the rocket. He went ashore again with a sampler, a weapon, and dark goggles to shield his eyes from the sharp sunlight. Now he could test what the marsh waters held. The sampler detected gold. Alalu immediately turned discovery into leverage. He targeted Nibiru, activated the speaker of words, and sent his demand. The gold of salvation lay on another world, and the throne must return to him. Anu answered with strategy. He sent Enki, his eldest son and Alalu's son-in-law, to mediate with the ex-king. Enki now stood between rival fathers, rival claims, and the survival needs of Nibiru. After Alalu landed on Earth, Enki secretly removed the remaining nuclear missiles from the spacecraft. He did not leave the arsenal in the hands of a defeated claimant. He hid it before the weapons could reshape the next struggle. Only Enki and his personal pilot Abgal knew where the missiles were hidden. This secret gave Enki control over a dangerous balance of power and made Abgal a trusted operator in the first Earth mission. Anzu found that the missiles had disappeared from Alalu's rocket. He demanded their return. His protest placed him against Enki's decision and exposed the tension between pilots, commanders, and royal strategy. Enki acted at once. He dismissed Anzu from the expedition and installed Abgal as his trusted pilot for the return mission to Nibiru. The secret remained protected, and Enki kept control of the operation. Around 460,000 BCE, Enki had established his base at Basra. From there, he sent Alalu's rocket back to Nibiru with gold samples. On Nibiru, Enlil challenged Enki's leadership and demanded proof that Earth could truly save their world. Abgal piloted the craft home with sample gold that Enki and his crew of 50 men had sifted from the Persian Gulf. The cargo was small, but it opened a planetary question. Could Earth repair Nibiru's failing sky? On Nibiru, scientists processed the sample into the finest dust. For one shard they fashioned it, and for another shard they tested it. Rockets carried the powder skyward, and crystal beams dispersed it into the damaged atmosphere. At first the gold appeared to help. Then Nibiru neared the sun. Solar rays disturbed the dust, the healing dwindled, and the atmospheric breach widened again. The test proved gold mattered, but small samples would never be enough. King Anu sent Abgal back to Earth for more gold. At Basra, Enki's men loaded the rocket with what little they had separated from Gulf water and sent it again to Nibiru. The yield remained too small for planetary repair. Enki and Abgal followed the trail. If the Gulf waters carried gold, the metal had to come from deeper land deposits. Their search moved beyond the shoreline and toward the Abzu, Africa. In the Abzu, Enki and Abgal found huge lodes and veins deep in the rock. Enki announced the discovery to Nibiru with triumph. Earth did not merely hold traces of gold, Earth held the mother lode. On Nibiru, Enlil challenged Enki's command. He argued that Enki had already raised false hope with gold from Earth's waters. If Earth was to become Nibiru's salvation, Enki had to prove the planet held vast land-based gold. Anu yielded to Enlil's demand. He named Enlil his legal successor and sent him to Earth to take charge and assess the gold for himself. With that order, succession politics entered the Earth mission directly. Enlil rocketed to Earth and landed in the Persian Gulf region. As Anu's heir, he expected authority if the gold proved real. He came to inspect, verify, and take command. Enlil examined Enki's data and retested the samples. His doubts gave way to confirmation. Earth did indeed hold enough gold to save Nibiru. The discovery validated the mission and sharpened the dispute over command. At Basra, Enki and Enlil disputed authority. Enki had found the gold, built the base, and opened Earth as Nibiru's lifeline. Enlil came as legal heir and demanded command. The mission needed a final ruling. Enlil asked Anu to come to Earth and clarify the chain of command for Enki and Alalu. Anu then rocketed to Earth to establish authority, settle command, and deal with the ex-king who had made Earth indispensable. Part 2 of the Anunnaki model of war, kingship, violence, and power, the rebel king, ends here, with Earth transformed. Alalu found the gold, Enki opened the mission, Abgal carried proof between worlds, and Enlil verified the evidence. Anu now comes to Earth to impose order. Next up is Part 3, Earth Command and Bloodlines, where he will divide authority, assign roles, and turn Earth into an organized Anunnaki command world.